get them rowdy and move the crowd. I stay on like ice with money cause I like riches hitting at the
Jimmy Iovine offered me $1 million, and my brother was with me, my brother C. He was like, man, take the $1 million. It was tough. My brothers, you know, all of them died at a young age because they feared.
All of America knows who Master P is, a commercial king. More than 100 million records sold. The man behind the No Limit Records empire. A symbol of the American dream in the entertainment industry. But be honest, all of that can be read in 30 seconds on Wikipedia. You believe he rose from nothing. You believe Master P pulled himself out of the projects and built a multi-million-dollar empire on his own. So what if I told you that most of that story might never have happened without a man named Kevin Miller? An older brother, history has almost erased. A name that never appears on albums, charts, or business books. Without Kevin Miller, Master P likely would not have survived into his teenage years. So, who was Kevin Miller really? Why does an entire legendary family almost never speak his name? What happened in the shadows of the Calliope projects to create the Miller family a dynasty, both dominant and blood-stained? One of the most violent legacies in hip-hop history do not look away. The real story begins here. Childhood in the Calliope projects, a forge of fate. Calliope was not just a public housing complex for low-income families in New Orleans. If you call it that, anyone who lived there would scoff. To them, Calliope was never public housing. It was an unofficial battlefield. No flags, no uniforms, no declaration of war. But there were guns, drugs, territory, and death. Not occasionally, but regularly. This was one of the most dangerous places in America in the 1990s where gangs fought for control of the drug trade like slicing up a blood-soaked pie. Lives fell as lightly as dry leaves. From 1993 to 2004, 88 people were killed within the boundaries of this single housing project. In 1994 alone, Calliope recorded the highest cold-blooded murder rate of any public housing area in the United States. One complex, not a city, not a state, one complex. And at the center of that storm lived the Miller family. Percy Miller, later known to the world as Master P. Corey Miller C. Murder, Vishon Miller, and Kevin Miller. Four brothers growing up in an environment where violence and death were not exceptions, but the rule. The Miller family struggled constantly just to survive to the point where even basic necessities sometimes became luxuries. But in poverty and chaos, they held on to something rare: unity. Life in Calliope was never easy, but the Millers clung to each other the way someone grips a railing when the stairs begin to shake. They depended on one another to survive. And within that family, Kevin, the eldest brother, was the pillar. He was known for toughness and a deeply street-rooted code family above everything, no matter the cost. In a place where survival often outweighed morality, Kevin's will stood out in a dangerous way. As the oldest, Kevin Miller almost automatically stepped into the role of protector after their parents divorced. No one crowned him a leader. Circumstances did. He became the anchor for his younger brothers, the shield in a housing project where opportunity was rarer than safety. In Calliope, hope did not come from the future. It came from the person standing in front of you. And for the Miller family, that person was Kevin. But wait is never free. With 4 mouths to feed responsibility and fear pressing down on the eldest brother, Kevin faced a decision Calliope always keeps ready. He joined a local group known as 2 Crew. From that moment on, the Miller family's story began to turn in a different direction. Kevin Miller, a step no one saw coming. If you asked people in Calliope to describe Kevin Miller, no one would call him a rapper. No one would call him a businessman either. Kevin had no brand, no stage, no 5-year plan. What he did have was a reputation built day by day on the most dangerous streets of New Orleans. To those around him, Kevin was a natural leader. Not because he barked orders, but because he knew how to read situations, when to push forward, and when to pull back. In Calliope, that was a form of survival intelligence. The Calliope projects both hardened Kevin and quietly set a trap for him. From an early age, he was pulled into street life. Like most kids who grew up there, no one taught him to do it. The environment did. Kevin and his friends started small, breaking into cars, petty theft. To outsiders, it was crime. To Calliope, it was a rite of passage. a kind of initiation into the understanding that survival sometimes meant bending the rules or breaking them entirely. Over time, Kevin's name carried weight, not because of bloodshed or body counts. He was not known for how many lives he took, but for how he moved through the neighborhood. There was an unspoken understanding Kevin was not someone to be taken lightly. He carried a quiet confidence, a presence that made people think twice before speaking or acting. In Calliope, that line was the difference between safety and trouble, and most people chose safety. What set Kevin apart was his rare street awareness. He read people faster than most. A glance, a tone of voice, the way someone stood or walked, Kevin knew whether to engage or stay away. That ability allowed him to move through this world more smoothly than many others. Kevin did not go looking for trouble, but he was always ready when trouble came to him. The mix of charisma, intelligence, and nerve made him stand out in a place where one mistake could cost your life. Kevin used that influence to form a protective umbrella over the Miller family. He tried to keep his younger brothers away from the worst traps of Calliope, at least as much as he could. Master P deeply admired his older brother, once comparing him to the other half of his own brain. Within the family, Kevin had the loudest voice. He had power, intelligence, and money. But the question always hovered: how long can someone stand in front of the storm before being knocked down themselves? Kevin walked a thin line. He was smart enough to understand the risk, but burdened enough to see no other choice. In Calliope, you do not ask, "Is this path dangerous?" You ask, "If I do not take it, what happens to my family?" And that question pushed Kevin into a step whose consequences no one, not even Kevin, could fully foresee. The turning point. In the months leading up to Kevin Miller's tragic death, the lives of the Miller brothers began to split in very different directions. They started from the same place, but each chose a different escape. Master P and Silk the Shocker left the brutal streets of New Orleans early, moving to California in search of new opportunities. Not because they stopped loving home, but because they understood that staying would only make the cost higher. Meanwhile, Corey Miller, later known to the world as C. Murder, chose a completely different path. He enlisted in the military, searching for discipline structure and the hope that the armed forces could pull him away from the chaos that had followed him since childhood. It was an attempt at escape, a form of self-rescue, even if it was not guaranteed to work. Those choices unintentionally left Kevin isolated. He became the only brother still holding down New Orleans, the one keeping everything together back home. Kevin stayed in Calliope, stayed with the streets he knew down to every dark corner. Not because he did not see the danger, but because someone had to stay. And by familiar gravity, that someone was the oldest brother. Despite the physical distance, the bond between the Miller brothers remained strong. They stayed in constant contact, checking in, sharing every move. Distance did not weaken the connection. If anything, it made it more painful. Every call from California back to New Orleans carried the same unspoken question: "Are you still okay?" Kevin had been thinking about leaving New Orleans for a long time. He was not blind. The streets were getting more dangerous, the relationships harder to control, and Master P kept urging him to leave the Calliope projects for good. At that point, Master P had begun laying the first bricks of No Limit. Not yet an empire, but enough to see a different road. And in that future, he wanted Kevin beside him. Before that fateful day, Master P called him from California, almost begging him to come west as soon as possible. Do not wait anymore. But Kevin did not leave in time, and Master P never imagined that would be the last time he would hear his brother's voice on the phone. If Kevin had left just one day earlier, would everything have been different? 14/09/1990, 4 gunshots without a reason. That night in 1990, Kevin Miller was driving with 2 acquaintances. Everything began normally. No plan, no bad feeling. Just a short ride like hundreds of others Kevin had taken on the familiar streets of New Orleans. Then an argument broke out between Kevin and one of the passengers in the car. No one knows exactly why. Maybe a wrong word. Maybe egos colliding. Or maybe there was no reason big enough at all. In places like Calliope, violence does not always need a clear cause. The argument escalated fast. Kenneth Williams, the 17-year-old sitting in the back seat, pulled out a gun. No warning, no further argument, no sense of right or wrong, no honor. Just 4 gunshots echoing inside the confined space of the car. Then silence. Kevin slumped over the steering wheel. It was over in seconds, so fast that no one fully understood what had just happened. Panic followed. The people with Kevin realized they had crossed a line they could never return from. Instead of seeking help, they chose the cruelest option. Kevin's body was dragged out of the car and dumped along Interstate 10, as if he were nothing more than a discarded object. Kevin lay there for nearly 2 weeks. No name, no identity. No one knew where he was until his death was discovered in the coldest way possible. Kevin's murder immediately triggered a police investigation. Clues began to surface and quickly led to 2 main suspects, Kenneth Williams and Melvin Radcliffe, age 21. Both knew Kevin and were the last people to see him alive. Pressure tightened. And when fear outweighed loyalty, Melvin Radcliffe broke. Radcliffe decided to cooperate with police, not out of justice, but out of fear. He feared that Kenneth Williams would place all the blame on him, or worse, would find a way to silence him. Radcliffe's confession became the turning point of the case. From his statement, police were able to locate Kevin's body and arrest both suspects. During the legal proceedings, Kenneth Williams was identified as the one who fired the shots and faced the harshest sentence. Radcliffe, as an accomplice, received a lighter sentence due to his cooperation. In the end, both were sentenced to prison for their actions. From a legal standpoint, justice was served. But for the Miller family, no sentence was heavy enough to bring Kevin back. Seeing those responsible brought into the light offered only a fragile sense of closure. The pain of losing a brother, the eldest, the backbone of the family, was something no courtroom could resolve. And those 4 gunshots did not just take a life. They opened the door to a chain of tragedies that would stretch on for many years. Family reaction: a vow beneath the ground. Kevin Miller's funeral was unlike any other. It was not just a farewell. It was the moment the Miller family was forced to confront the harshest truth Calliope had taken their oldest brother. And it did so with the cold routine of everyday life. That day, Master P stood beside his mother. On the other side was Corey, who had requested leave from the military to return for his brother's funeral. 3 people standing together, yet each carrying a different storm inside. As Kevin's casket was lowered into the ground, every surrounding sound seemed to be strangled. The priest spoke. Prayers were said. But no one in the family was clear-minded enough to listen. Master P later recalled that moment with a simple sentence, but one that cut to the bone. I stood next to my mom, next to Corey. We watched them lower my brother into the ground. The priest said words, but I do not remember them. What do you say when a city takes one of your own and calls it a Tuesday? That question did not need an answer, because in places like Calliope, death is rarely seen as a personal tragedy. It is treated as part of the daily schedule. Today, it is Kevin. Tomorrow, it could be anyone else. The city does not apologize. The city does not stop. It just keeps moving. But in that moment that seemed to contain nothing but loss, something else began to form. Master P did not collapse. He did not allow himself to be buried alongside his brother. While many would have been dragged down by grief, he stood there and faced it, head on. Not with tears, but with a frightening clarity. Standing before Kevin's grave, Master P made a silent vow to himself. No witnesses, no testimony, just dirt stone, and a name that had just been buried. I stood under Kevin's grave. I swore to you, this will not end like this. Your name will not die like this. I will make it mean something. It was not a vow of revenge, not a promise to spill more blood. It was a far colder decision to turn a meaningless death into motivation, to turn loss into fuel, to turn tragedy into a reason to never return to the starting point. For Corey, the funeral was a blow that cut deep into the violent instincts already burning inside him. For their mother, it was a wound that would never heal. But for Master P, Kevin's funeral became a boundary. A clear line between if we stay and we have to go. Between accepting the fate of Calliope and rewriting it. It was no coincidence that after that funeral, Master P became obsessed with the idea of getting the whole family out. Not getting rich for himself, not becoming famous to prove anything, but to make sure Kevin's death was not just another statistic on the list of people swallowed by Calliope. Kevin never heard that vow. But the rest of Master P's life became the answer. And from the moment the casket touched the ground that day, one thing was set in motion. If Calliope created tragedy, then the Miller family would respond with an empire. Not to forget Kevin, but to make sure his name did not die in vain. Master P, Turning Street. Thinking into a business empire. First choice business instead of weapons. Master P, born Percy Robert Miller in 1967, was not the oldest brother in the Miller family. But very early on, he showed that he was the one who saw the farthest ahead. While many people in Calliope learned how to hold a gun to survive, Percy learned how to observe. He saw the patterns behind violence, the money flow behind chaos, and most importantly, he saw the ending if no one changed direction. Before Kevin died, Master P had already begun experimenting with music, not with rose-colored dreams, but with pure street logic. Whatever you do, you control it yourself. On February 15, 1990, he and the group, the Real Untouchables TRU, made up of family members, released Mind of a Psychopath. It was not a breakout hit, but it was the first brick. And what mattered was not the number of records sold, but the way Percy approached the game. Master P did not want to be just another rapper. Early on, he asked a question very few in the industry dared to ask at the time: how much of myself do I own? While many artists were desperate just to get signed, Percy demanded ownership. Not out of greed, but because he understood a very street-level truth: whoever holds the keys is the one who opens the door. When he received $10,000 in inheritance from his grandfather, money from a medical malpractice settlement, Master P did not spend it. He treated it as capital. In 1991, he opened No Limit Record Shop in Richmond, California, where the brothers had relocated. A small store selling tapes, selling his own music, and the music of people around him. It sounded simple, but it was a survival move. Percy was learning distribution, not just creation. Master P's strategy was clear. If you want to escape Calliope, you cannot go alone. You have to pull the whole family with you. You have to build a machine big enough so everyone who steps inside has a place. Silk the Shocker later said it plainly. The streets were our way out at first, but we lost a brother. That changed everything. The way he died made us realize this could happen to any of us. Master P never forgot that. Kevin's death was not a signal to slow down. For Percy, it was a signal to climb faster before everything ended. The same way. Building the empire. No Limit Records. 1990 to 1995. The independent years, Master P started from almost nothing. He released his own music and introduced other rappers through No Limit, no major media, no heavy backing, just volume discipline and stubborn persistence. When Priority Records took notice, Percy did not rush to sell himself. He saw a chance to expand while keeping control. In 1995, Master P brought No Limit back to New Orleans. It was a risky move, but a strategic one. He brought talent from California, while teaming up with local artists like Mystical Mia, X Kane, and Abel. No Limit developed a distinct identity. Raw street music, crowded album covers, constant releases. Not polished, but effective. Albums like Ice Cream Man 1996 and Ghetto D 1997 put the name Master P on the map. But that was only the warm-up. 1998 to 2001, the explosion era. The real turning point came in 1998 when Snoop Dogg left Death Row Records and signed with No Limit. This was not just a contract, it was proof that Master P's model had won. A top-tier artist chose No Limit not for quick money, but for ownership and respect. From there, No Limit exploded. By 2001, the label had sold more than 100 million records worldwide. It was not just Master P. Silk the Shocker made his mark with The Shocker, and even C-Murder, a man driven by deep violent instincts, reached his peak with Life or Death debuting at #1 on the R&B hip-hop chart. A bitter paradox, the same empire that saved the family did not save everyone. Master P did not stop at music. He expanded into film, starring in and producing his own movies. He launched the No Limit clothing line, experimented with sports drinks, partnered with sports and major brands. But one thing never changed: he kept ownership. No selling out, no handing his future to anyone else. The mindset behind the success. In 2015, Master P told Forbes, "They need to understand economics, understand integrity, and understand humility. Your character is all you really carry with you. If you make a promise, you have to keep it. That was not the voice of a rapper flashing money. That was the mindset of a survivor from Calliope. Someone who understood that being rich was not enough. You had to last. You had to build something that outlived you. And beneath every strategy, every contract, every number, Master P's motivation remained simple: getting his family out of the place that killed his brother. No Limit was not just a record label. It was Master P's answer to Kevin's death. Not with guns, not with revenge, but by proving that street thinking, when placed correctly, could become an empire. And that was the first choice, and the most important one that Percy Miller made for the Miller family. But the one person Master P could not save was his younger brother. C. Murder, the shadow of Kevin. If Kevin Miller was the first true street prototype the Miller family ever had, then C. Murder was the long shadow cast by that prototype. Corey Miller grew up watching Kevin handle situations, command respect, enforce boundaries, and stand on the front line for the entire family. What Kevin left behind was not just memory, but reflex. And that reflex Corey absorbed almost completely. Corey resembled Kevin in several core ways. First was the instinct for violence. In Calliope, you do not have time to think things through for long. You react or you get swallowed. Corey carried that reflex into every space he entered. Next was street reputation. Corey was never anonymous. He stepped outside with a name, a history, and an authority that others immediately recognized. And finally, the most dangerous trait of all, the inability to retreat. Like Kevin, Corey believed that stepping back meant weakness, and in Calliope, weakness meant death. But there was one difference between Corey and Kevin, and it proved fatal. Kevin died in the dark, in a moment, unseen, without cameras, without spotlights. His death followed the familiar street tragedy pattern, fast, cold, and swallowed by silence. Corey was different. Corey carried all of those instincts into the spotlight. As an artist with fame, with witnesses everywhere, Corey still behaved as if he were standing in a dark corner of Calliope. The incident at the Platinum Club was the point of no return. One violent night, a confrontation, gunshots fired in a public space. And this time, there was more than a victim. There were witnesses, statements, records, no longer street rumor, but stamped fact. Corey was charged with murder and sentenced to life in prison. The door closed decisively, in the way the legal system always does, without emotion, without negotiation. The bitter truth is that Corey did not lack opportunity. He had money. He had fame. He had a brother in Master P who had already proven that escape from Calliope was possible through business instead of weapons. Corey had everything Kevin never did, and yet he walked the same path. Not because he lacked options, but because he could not escape himself. Corey carried Kevin with him for too long. He carried reflexive problem solving. He carried the belief that authority had to be asserted instantly. He carried the mindset that if you do not dominate, you will be dominated. Those instincts might keep you alive in Calliope, but they become a death sentence under lights and law. C. Murder, then, is not just an individual failure. He is a brutal reminder of the limits of street thinking, that some instincts cannot be carried forever, that the same lesson learned in the wrong place can kill you faster than any enemy. Kevin died, leaving a void. Corey lived on, trying to fill that void with himself. And the price was the rest of his life. The unspoken message of this story is clear, even if no one wants to say it aloud. C. Murder did not fail because he lacked opportunity. He failed because he could not let go of Kevin's shadow. And in the Miller family, that is the greatest tragedy of all. Not everyone learns the same lesson from the same death. Legacy, ruled and killed. Looking back at the Miller family, it is easy to get lost in the numbers. Millions of records sold, hundreds of millions of dollars, life sentences, and one death in 1990. But if that is all you see, you miss the most important truth. This family's legacy is not about isolated success or tragedy. It lies in the raw contrast of three destinies born under the same roof. With Master P, the story from the outside looks like victory. He lived, he became wealthy, He built an empire few people from the projects could ever
BET
imagine.
interview, he
No
mentioned
Limit
never
Records
actually
did
seeing
not
a
just
gun,
pull
even when
Master
he
P
moved
out of
Miller out of the
Calliope.
sky, whose
It
rap
pulled
name
an
is C
entire
Murder,
family,
has
an
countless of
entire
records,
generation with him. But the cost was never listed on a balance sheet. Master P lost a child, a pain no contract could ever compensate for. His success always carried a void with it. He won the game, but never completely. On the other
calling
side
himself
stands
C Murder,
Murder.
songs,
Corey
becoming
Miller
one of the
also lived, but in a different way. He exists behind bars buried under a life sentence. C Murder had money, fame, and opportunities Kevin never had. But he never left Calliope in his mind. He carried street reflexes onto the stage lights, carried violent
hit the like
solutions
button,
into a
man.
world
Drop a
governed by
comment.
clear laws. Corey did not lack opportunity. He lacked something far harder, the ability to let go of himself. And what about Kevin Miller? Kevin died. No spotlight, no material legacy. Yet ironically, he remains the center of the entire story.
I've seen a
Every
lot of
turning
All of that
point
is
traces
greatly
back to
appreciated.
Kevin's
Let's
death.
get into this video
Master
though.
P
100.
charged forward because of Kevin. C Murder spiraled under Kevin's shadow. Even later successes and failures orbit that moment in 1990. Kevin left no albums, no companies. He left a wound. And that wound shaped the entire family.
Man, that had
The
C
Miller
Murder
family
locked
thus
up.
became a living paradox. One home, three outcomes. One man stepped into the light and built an empire. One man disappeared into the darkness of himself. One man fell, yet never truly left the story. They were not the only family raised in Calliope,
Background.
but they are the
C
clearest
Murder,
proof
before we
that the
get
same
into the
environment
situation,
does not produce the same fate. Choices and how one confronts loss are what separate paths. The ruled and killed legacy of the Miller family exists neither to glorify nor to condemn. It stands as a warning. That street
freedom.
thinking can save you if you
the
place it
third ward
correctly,
in particular,
but
up
that same thinking can kill you if you carry it too far. That success does not erase pain, and pain does not automatically produce wisdom. Each person must learn their own lesson even when the price has already been paid by someone else. From a distance, this story looks like a movie, but for the Miller family, it is real life.
One of the
There
members,
is no
one of the
clean
full
ending,
members of True
only
TR.
unfinished pieces. And perhaps that is the true legacy. A story that forces you to stop and ask which path you would choose if you stood at the same crossroads. So, what about you? Do you think the Miller family's fate was shaped more by
his own
environment
label,
or
True
by personal
Records,
choice?
and began building
If
full
you
of
were
solo
Master P,
albums on
would
No
you have done
Limit, as well
anything
as
differently?
the
And if you were C Murder, do you believe you could still escape Kevin's shadow? Leave a comment and let me know your perspective.
We encourage viewers to approach the content with an open mind, critical thinking, and to always cross-reference with multiple sources in order to form their own perspective. That's the reality of the game. Fame always comes with a price. If you vibe with the content and want the real uncut stories, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the Black Vault.